I mean, it's a choice.
Yep.
I want out. You let me out of here now.
Yep.
That's why they chose us.
Welcome to Recap King. In this video, we will explain Escape Room. This movie tells the story of 6 strangers trapped in an immersive escape room for a chance to win tons of money. Being locked in several rooms with extreme conditions, they discover the secrets behind the escape room and must fight to survive and to find a way out. Will they survive the deadly escape room? Let's find out in Escape Room. Escape Room begins by showing 6 people who receive a mysterious delivery puzzle cube. The 6 people are Zoe, Mike, Amanda, Ben, Jason, and Danny. They then tried to open the cube, ranging from using violence by destroying to racking their brains using logical formulas. But all their efforts to no avail. Until finally the 6 people managed to open the puzzle cube and found a piece of paper that said that they had all been invited to take part in a game called Escape Room, and the winner would get a prize money of $10,000. Long story short, the 6 people then headed to a building that was allegedly the location of the escape room game. There, they are required to show identity cards and leave luggage such as cell phones and others. While waiting in a room, the 6 people got to know each other and chatted modestly. One of the participants, named Ben, decided to go out for a while because he wanted to smoke. But when he tried to open the door by turning the doorknob, it just fell off. In the part that should be the doorknob, there is actually a kind of temperature control device. The participants then assumed that the game had started. They searched the room for clues to get out of the room. Not long after, Mike accidentally found a screwdriver in a book called 451 Fahrenheit. Zoe, who saw the book's title, assumed that maybe the title of the book was the password to get out of the room. Without telling the other participants, Zoe then turned the temperature control device on the doorknob to the number 451. However, the room remained locked, and her action turned on the heater in the room. Suddenly, the temperature of the room increased and all the participants panicked. Because the temperature was getting hotter, the participants took off their jackets and drank lots of water to survive in the room while trying to open the door using a screwdriver. While looking for other clues, Zoe stumbles across writing on the wall that says always use coasters. She then checked the table in the room and indeed there were 6 coasters that could be pressed. When the 6 coasters were pressed together, a secret passage door behind the painting suddenly opened. However, the hallway door could only open when the 6 of them pressed the coasters together. As a result, they filled their glasses to serve as holders on coasters. But they could only fill 5 glasses of water because the water supply was low. They panicked even more when the lamp on the ceiling turned into a giant fire stove. Luckily, Ben still kept his alcohol bottle, which was quite full. Ben and Danny then filled the last glass with the alcohol and entered the hallway, just before the room caught fire and exploded. Finally, all the participants managed to escape from the first game room. The secret passage leads the 6 participants into a log cabin similar to a winter cabin in the forest. After surviving the room that almost roasted them alive, all the participants then wondered if the game was really dangerous or just a setting. Danny, who is a fan of games with the theme of escape rooms, thinks that all of this is just a game. But Amanda, who is a veteran of the Iraq War, assumes that the events they experienced in the previous room were real and could kill them all. She decided to give up the game. But Jason then reminded that the amount of prize money for the winners in this game was fantastic. And because of that, they were all tempted and decided to continue the game. The only way out of the cabin was through the door, which was currently locked with a 7-letter combination padlock. This time, Ben noticed something odd about the deer antlers hanging on the cabin wall. On the deer's antlers was a letter, and when he tried to string the letters together, he recalled an accident he and his friends had experienced. At that time, he was driving a car drunk with his friends. They then sang the song Rudolph the Deer. Ben then said that Rudolph was a combination code to open the lock, and it turned out to be true. The door finally opened. He then assumes that this game is odd because the game organizers seem to know about his past. After exiting the cabin, the 6 participants were faced with a vast snow forest. Danny walked over the frozen lake and tried to walk as far as he could. But it turns out that the snow forest is just a setting because it is actually a monitor board surrounding the place. Danny's head hit one of the monitor boards and fell, causing a slight crack in the ice lake. He thought that the ice lake would not be destroyed because it was a setting lake. But then the 2 air vents in the room opened and spewed cold air, which lowered the room's air temperature drastically. The cabin door closed automatically so that the participants could not go back inside to warm themselves. The participants finally worked together to find clues so they could get out of the freezing room. Zoe finds a magnet inside the polar bear statue and Jason finds a small door at the end of the room. Mike managed to find a fishing rod in the tree. Meanwhile, Ben accidentally finds a hole above the frozen lake surface. They then attached a magnet to the fishing rod and managed to pull out a block of ice with a key. Danny then took the initiative to borrow Ben's lighter. Ben, who was on the opposite side, threw the match at Danny, but it fell on the lake's frozen surface. When Danny was about to take it, suddenly the surface of the ice lake he was stepping on broke and made him fall into a freezing ice lake. The other participants then tried to help Danny, but because the current was very strong, Danny's life was not saved. All the remaining participants realized that whoever was the mastermind behind this game would really kill them and make this deadly game just for entertainment. The participants also have no other choice because the only way to get out of this game is to continue to follow the game until the end. They immediately looked for a way to melt the block of ice to get the key out. They decided to use body heat to melt the ice cubes. After hours of freezing cold and numb hands, they finally managed to retrieve the key. At the same time, the ice lake began to crumble. The participants rushed to the small door found by Jason and opened it using the key. The 5 participants finally managed to escape from the cold snowy room and entered the next game room. The game room this time is a billiard bar room, but in reverse. They found a yellow door at the top of the room, but it had no doorknob. The participants had to find the doorknob to get out of the billiards room. But suddenly the phone rang, and when Mike picked it up, there was a very loud sound of music, and after the music stopped, suddenly part of the floor in the room fell. Luckily, Ben still managed to save Mike, who almost fell. They then assumed that if the phone rang, the floor on which they were standing would fall. Amanda climbed to higher ground, trying to find a clue before the entire floor in the room fell and killed them all. She managed to find a safe, which again had to use a code to open it. But before long, the phone rang again and Jason almost fell. Zoe noticed some pictures on the walls of the room, trying to crack the code using the color of the billiard ball as a reference. Yellow means ball 9, black means ball 8, and blue is ball 10. She then told Amanda the code 9810. After trying, it turns out that the code is wrong. Zoe thought hard and realized that this room was upside down, which meant the code had to be reversed too. Zoe then told Amanda about the reverse code. Sure enough, the safe was successfully opened after Amanda entered code 189. Amanda immediately grabbed the doorknob and tried to climb up to the door. The other 4 participants made it to the door, but Amanda was left behind and accidentally dropped the doorknob on the floor. Amanda rushed to grab the doorknob, but at the same time, the phone rang again and the deafening music sounded again. The floor she was standing on fell off, but she managed to throw the doorknob at Jason before falling and dying instantly. After successfully passing the reverse billiard room, the remaining participants faced a hospital setting room where they had been treated some time ago. It turned out that all the participants who took part in the escape room game had one thing in common, namely as the only person who managed to survive the deadly accident they had experienced. Ben is the only survivor of a car crash that killed all of his friends. Likewise with Zoe, who became the only passenger who survived a plane crash, Danny, who survived when his entire family died from carbon monoxide poisoning, and Amanda became the only person who survived the IED explosion. Mike also became the only worker who survived when all the other workers died in an accident at the mine. Likewise, Jason became the only passenger on the ship who managed to survive in the cold weather. Zoe realized that the goal of the game was to determine which player was the luckiest. Not long after, suddenly the television in the room turned on and showed a video recording of heart surgery. After that, a countdown timer with 5 minutes appears. Mike found an X-ray of the hand, which turned out to be a sign language for the letters ECG or electrocardiograph, a tool to detect heart rate and rhythm. The participants rushed to find the tool, even though they didn't know how to use the tool to find a way out. Jason assumed they had to raise their heart rate to a certain level to make their way out of the room. He then immunized Mike and increased his heart rate using a defibrillator until Mike's heart rate reached 206. But the timer kept running. As a result of Jason's carelessness, Mike had to die because of convulsions due to his heart rate exceeding normal limits. Jason then realized that maybe the trick was to lower the heart rate, not increase it. He then meditated to lower his heart rate to level 50, and that was the way to go because the timer finally stopped. At the same time, a secret passageway door opened and the hospital setting room was now filled with poison gas. Jason and Ben headed straight to the next game room, leaving Zoe unconscious due to a sudden inhalation of poison gas. The next game room is quite simple and the participants who make it to the room are only required to open the door on the floor. But it turns out that the doorknob has been smeared with poison that causes Jason and Ben to hallucinate. The two of them felt the room spinning violently and made it difficult for them to think clearly. Behind the door there is a clue that says that there is an antidote hidden in the room. One of them must find it and get out of there to continue the game, or both will die if they don't find it. Ben manages to find the antidote in a secret drawer, but Jason tried to snatch it. The two immediately fought, and the battle of life and death was finally won by Ben. He then injected the antidote into his body and entered the next game room, which was set up like a private library room filled with antiques. Without thinking, he then headed to the end of the room and just moved the puzzle on the room wall. Suddenly the walls in the room moved and the room grew narrower every second. Ben tries to find clues elsewhere, but the wall keeps moving and his situation becomes even tenser. But Ben didn't lose his mind. He avoided the crush of the wall by desperately hiding inside the blazing fireplace, ignoring the heat of the fire. After the room stopped moving, he managed to escape from the library room, the last room in the escape room game. Ben then arrived in a large room and met the game master who had been overseeing the game. Game master then congratulates Ben for winning the game. Game master then reveals to Ben that the escape room game they participated in was broadcast worldwide and watched by rich and powerful people around the world who regard the deadly escape room game as mere entertainment. But then, Game Master tries to kill Ben because the escape room game is designed so that none of the participants survive. But Zoe suddenly arrives and kills the Game Master by shooting him in the head before he kills Ben. Zoe manages to escape from the hospital setting after secretly finding and putting on an oxygen mask to prevent herself from inhaling the poison gas, and pretending to be unconscious. Then not long after, some of the game committee came to clean the room and erase all traces. Zoe got up and managed to paralyze them, then rushed to escape from the room, until she finally found Ben and the Game Master. Ben and Zoe became participants who managed to survive the game escape room. While Ben is recovering from his injuries, Zoe returns to the building calling the police. But the police do not believe her because all the evidence of the game has been lost. Police also do not believe in Ben because he was taking sedatives. While looking at the graffiti on the wall, Zoe notices the words "Woot and You" and realizes that it's an anagram for "No Way Out," indicating that the escape room game isn't over yet. 6 months later, Zoe meets with Ben and shows him the results of an investigation into the escape room game. It turns out that the deadly game was created by a large organization and has unlimited funds. Zoe was determined to reveal the identity of the organization as soon as possible. Zoe then reveals a clue to Ben that leads to an unlisted building in Manhattan. Ben agrees to go with her. However, their plan seems to have been known by the organization's leadership. Puzzle Maker is set to turn their flight into a deadly new survival game for both Zoe and Ben, and the film ends.